Welcome to Founders Club, the show for real estate entrepreneurs.
Anybody can argue with facts. It's impossible to argue with a story. And that's a big deal right there.
Yeah. Today I'm up here in Laguna Beach at the Montage. Gonna be sitting down with the co-founder of digitalmarketer.com, Perry Belcher. He has sold over $400 million worth of products and services online.
I'm a rock and roll guy.
Well,
so anything,
rock and roll. Okay, so
I like.
I met a Genso ballroom queen in Memphis. Mm-hmm. You had a place.
Yep.
You got a description of a character. Why does that matter?
Right.
Because you got to have a scene.
Yep.
And he's gonna share with us a lot of strategies on buying great domain names.
They want $110,000 for it. And after I finished negotiating with them, I paid $9,900.
Story selling and different things that you can do to leverage stories.
So when you're selling somebody a fine sports car or Rolls Royce or whatever, they can tell you an amazing story. You know the Rolls Royce takes 7 months to build one car, because otherwise no other idiot would buy a $400,000 car.
To sell more and all sorts of great strategies that you can use to increase your business. Looking forward to getting started.
Very excited to be sitting here with Perry Belcher, enjoying a couple cocktails, sitting here at the beautiful
In the
Montage.
morning for breakfast.
Breakfast of Champions. So I'll cheers to that, and thanks a
Here.
lot for being
I'm halfway
on.
through mine already.
Yeah, you are. You
were
got
very
started quick.
Patient.
So I just want to start by, why don't you give us the 30-second background story of your business career?
I'll probably take more than 30 seconds, but I'll try to make it brief. I started as a retailer. I grew up dirt poor in a housing project in Kentucky. I started off with 42 retail stores when I was 19 years old, because between 18 and 19. I was broke at 21. So I started off
What was the retail stores?
jewelry, all jewelry.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously was out of that business. Went back into retail 2 or 3 times. So I've kind of had tranches of my career. So the first 10 years was retail. Second 10 years was manufacturing.
Okay.
Third 10 years has been, a bridge into e-com and digital marketing. And then got in a shitload of trouble selling supplements. Almost went to jail.
Okay.
Because, if you're selling supplements, maybe you shouldn't do that. It's very litigious. I got in a lot of trouble. And then I met this guy named Ryan Dice. He owned a company in Texas called Touchtone Publishing. He was publishing information on how to make money on the internet, on the interwebs, as we call it. And we got together and we rebranded that company Digital Marketer about 12 years ago.
Okay.
And then we started the War Room Mastermind, you've heard of probably.
Yep.
Traffic Conversion Summit and all that. So we kind of built a little mini empire there. And about 4 or 5 years into that, we were about to kill each other because we were trying to co-manage the thing. So it's really better for him to be in charge of that. And we had started this little consumer division, and I went over to run that, and that's become a pretty big company now.
And that was Native Commerce?
Yeah, it was Native Commerce. Now it's called Olympus Peak Media. We're partners with Agora, the Agora companies. So now I kind of dabble around and invest in to sell. It's a different mindset, it's a different shift, right? And our partner, Roland Frazier, who came in kind of midway of all that, kind of turned us on to all that and got me thinking that way. And it's a really very different way to think. But when you get that first big, wire, and you're like, ain't no fucking way somebody send me that much money, And then you get it, and you're like, holy shit, they actually sent it. And you're like, and about 10 minutes later, you're like, I want to do that again. It's like having sex for the first time. You're really nervous all the way up to it. And then as soon as you're done, you're ready to do it again, right?
There you go. That's a great analogy.
It really is.
Yeah. So you started out in jewelry.
So I was a retailer. So e-com kind of came natural to me
Okay.
because I understood it's just like, this is just retailing through a computer screen, right? So it wasn't really that complicated. So I always tell people, anything you wouldn't do in a store setting, you shouldn't do online.
That's great advice.
You wouldn't stand at the door of a store and go, hey, unless you give me your email address, you can't come in here. You'd never do that, right? But people do that online. There's a lot of stuff people do online that is counterintuitive to the way that it should be.
Or coming across real aggressive with the buy my product.
Yeah.
When they walk in the store.
Right.
What was your first venture into the internet selling space?
I started a company called craftstore.com. A funny story. So I'm not a chemist, but he is. It's a really great one. And we were trying to come up with, I thought I could sell clear candles. If we get a candle to be clear, I could sell it. During the process of making it, he was trying all these different experiments. So we were congealing oil, kerosene, all kinds of things to try to make this candle. And one of the failed experiments was congealed alcohol.
Okay.
Because when you set it on fire, it went,
The whole thing lit up.
Yeah, right. So we set it on the shelf, and it's really pretty. And we set it on the shelf forever. It was there probably 2 years. And one day, some chemical rep came in and said, what's that? And it still had all the bubbles in it and everything. And they said, oh, we were trying to make these candles. And it's congealed alcohol. There's nothing we can really do with it. And this guy said, it would kill germs. And we
An aha moment.
An aha moment happened. We packaged it up. We took it to a trade show in Atlanta. We sold $2 million worth in 3 days. And then we sold it to one of the leads we picked up there was a company called the Gryphon Development Corporation. Nobody's ever heard of. They're the company that makes all of they're owned by the Limited Group. So they make all the bath products for Bath & Body Works, Limited, Victoria's Secret, White Barn Candle, all that.
Wow.
So we sold them, we sold them those.
The formula or something like
No,
that?
we made it for them.
Oh, okay.
So we went from being this little bitty 2,000 square foot plant to having a 110,000 square foot plant in 6 months.
Wow.
I've always been really good at growing stuff really fast. I'm not good at making money. I'm really good at growing revenue. I always have to have somebody around to make sure that we're not losing our ass because I'm not real good at that part.
The managing the books part.
I'm not good at that. I'm really good at just exploding the growth. I'm really great at that.
And that was all through craftstore.com?
Well, no, that was before.
So that was
and then
the candles.
That was before, and then we sold that company. I sold that company. It's the first company I sold. And there's a wrong way to sell a company. I sold that company for my partner and I was 30-something, 36 maybe. And I wanted to be a cash millionaire before I was 40. So they offered us $2.2 million to buy all the company by that time. And we took it. So we had $1.1 million check each. I remember I was like, I made it. Yeah. And 3 months later, they sold just the patent for $11 million.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
happens. I learned a lesson and
Still got a nice little payday.
got a nice little payday.
Yeah.
As our old friend Roland says, every $1 million helps.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's got a lot of good strategies for that kind of stuff too. Craftstore.com, like obviously that's an insanely good domain name.
Yeah.
And one thing I've noticed about you over the years is you're very good at getting really good domain names. Do you have any tips for?
Yeah, there's a bunch of tips for it. I mean, the biggest secret is just pay for them, I think that domain names are still insanely cheap. Give me an example. I won't say their name, but their name was taken, right? Somebody had it and they wouldn't sell it. This is a company that does $19 million a year in digital education, probably at a 40% margin, 50% margin.
Yeah.
And they're like, can you help us get our domain name? This guy's just been holding on to it forever. And he wants $25,000 for it and he just won't come down. And I'm like,
Just give it to him.
buy it, right?
Right.
And I ended up negotiating it down for them. They actually wanted 100. I got it for like 19 grand or something. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it. Like I see domain names as land.
Yeah.
So I own about 3,000. About 1,000 of mine are really top tier names like sewing.com and, homesteading.com, makeuptutorials.com, stuff like that.
Don't you have like billofrights.com?
Billofrights.com.
Amazing.
Yeah, a bunch of other ones. I own a lot of really good domains. And I just see them as a piece of land, right? So I buy them. The really good ones I register for 10 years, so I make sure I don't miss them, right? Because you buy something for a lot of money and then register for a year, you're a real dumbass because you forget that.
And then oops.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I register them and then I just hold them like any landowner would. And I've got a development list of what I want to do next. And a lot of stuff I don't really develop. I just wait for somebody to come along. That's a good partner to run that.
Right.
Because I'm not good at running things. I'm really good at building the business model, creating the copy, the advertising, figuring out how we're going to make money, figuring out the advertising, all that stuff. But when it comes down to the day-to-day grind of running the business, I really like to have a partner to do that. So a lot of stuff I've got sitting around just waiting for a partner to come by. Sometimes I'm aggressively seeking the partner, but I think when I do that, I find out I get poorer partners because I'm sort of desperate. It's like when you hadn't been laid in like 6 months and you go out. Probably not. Your first choice is probably going to be your best choice.
You're just on the prowl.
It's on the prowl, right? So I just have so many contacts through the events and digital marketing stuff that I'll just meet somebody that one day that happens to be the perfect fit for that thing, and then we'll put it together. And I got a bunch of those.
Are they always for sale? Like, do you have them listed all the time, or you just keep them private?
Yeah, they're never for sale. I only put the ones that I don't really want to keep for sale, and I'll hold them for a year or two. But when you're negotiating them, just remember that nobody really knows what they're worth.
Right.
So there's a lot of, it's not like real estate, right? There's a lot of price elasticity. And you'll get a nut, or, they'll say, real estate is good.net, and I want $2 million for it. You're like, you're a moron.
Yeah.
But most people are not like that, and they're fairly easy to deal with. And but you can negotiate a lot. I use a site called Estibot, Estibot does appraisals on domain names.
ESTIBOT?
Yeah, and you can do, I think you do 1 or 2 appraisals for free a month or something.
Oh, cool.
But if you're getting more, I have an account, it's like $50 a year or something. But I'll do the Estibot and screenshot it and send it to them and say, hey, look, now they're doing them, I think they're doing the estimates for free on GoDaddy. I say, GoDaddy says your domain's worth $3,000.
Right.
I'm offering you $5,000. Don't be an asshole, right? And that helps a lot. Sometimes people are unreasonable. And then always, when you're finally done with your final negotiation and you've agreed on a price, then ask for terms. Because you can put that domain in escrow with escrow.com. They're not at any risk. So the seller, when you understand how to explain this to them, it becomes pretty easy. Like if you got a domain and you want $100,000 for it, and I want it, and we agree on $100,000, right? So, but I don't really want to. I want to try to make some money before I pay the $100,000.
Right.
I might say, well, Oliver, how about this? I'll give you the $100,000 you want, but I'll give it to you $10,000 a month over 10 months.
Yep.
So, you Oliver, move the domain to escrow.com, and you won't own it, and I don't own it. Escrow has it, and we'll have an arrangement that says, once I've paid for it all, it transfers to me. Yeah. If I ever default and don't pay a payment within 30 days, it transfers back to you.
And you keep the money.
And you keep the money. So you're winner, chicken dinner, right? So it's like an option on real estate or whatever. Yeah, but it's a way up. That's the way I buy them. It's a lot more detailed than that.
Yeah.
I did a couple talks on it at U-Bennett.
What I actually really love about the way that you present the concept of domains related to real estate really resonated with me, because since that talk, we've been buying domains as well.
Right.
And it's true, because like the same way you're buying the domain name, which is really like the raw land, right? It's land. And then to increase the value, you can start building your real estate on it, right? Put a site on it, start adding content, start getting traffic, increase the value.
Because all that content creation is an investment in development, right?
Yeah.
So if you're developing on bad land, so I always want Fifth Avenue, right? That's what I go for. And if it's not available, then I go to the Lower East Side. I try to get as close as I can. And sometimes if I don't have the money in that business to buy the domain, I kind of do now. I kind of buy whatever I want, but so I just go for it. I have a bid in right now on, one I bid $50,000 on one this morning that I'm really, really, really hoping to get.
Yeah.
And if I get it for 50, I'm stealing it, right? I'll give you an example. I bought LasVegasConventionCenter.com not long ago.
Great domain.
Yeah, they want $110,000 for it. And after I finished negotiating with them, it took me 5 months. I paid $9,900 for it.
Wow.
The day that we closed, just total coincidentally, the Las Vegas Convention Center announced a $1 billion expansion to the convention center.
So the value just went up.
You think? Yeah. So you never know, man. I've sold a few for really good offers. I've sold a few for 5 figures. I've never sold a 6-figure one. And then I buy a lot of little weird ones that I'll buy for $20 and sell for $500.
Right.
And
quick flips.
Yeah, I've been teaching my kids how to do it. I don't know if they'll do it or not, but if I'm ever like in a nursing home and I can just operate an iPad with a thumb and thick glasses, I can make a living flipping domains.
Yeah. So what about for the people out there that want to purchase something or look around to find domains? Do you have resources that you would recommend for purchasing?
Yeah, there's a bunch. I use a site that I don't think a lot of people don't use. It's called Register Compass. Register Compass shows you all the domains available to purchase from different sources, and that's a paid service.
Okay.
But lately I've been using another service. So it'll show you what's available that's recently expired. It'll show you what's about to expire, searched by name or whatever, and then it'll show you what's for sale.
Okay.
Right? I can usually spend 30 minutes on Register Compass and come up with something wicked better than anybody has. And sometimes you'll just find stuff that's like cool, right? I was showing this to a guy in an event once, and he was searching t-shirt domains available, and SturgisT-shirts.com was available. So he bought it for $9. It was expired. Got a bunch of t-shirts for Sturgis, the big motorcycle festival.
Yeah.
And he has a business now. And that just,
now he's selling Sturgis t-shirts online.
Yeah. And once the thing about it's called an exact match domain. So they're branded domains, like Big Block Realty. That's a brand, right?
Right.
But if you were San Diego Realestate.com, that's an exact match, right? So the thing about it, with the same amount of weight in development and links and everything, San Diego realestate.com is going to always outrank Big Block Real Estate for San Diego real estate, right? So, which is your main search term. It's going to always outrank. And what a lot of people get confused about, so which one should I get? Should I get this one or this one? Truth is both. What I would do is redirect my branded domain to the Exact Match, and then I would have my logo on the Exact Match domain. You can be Leroy's Barbecue at barbecue.com. Right. You don't
LasVegasBarbecue.com.
Right.
Whatever,
Yeah, whatever. So because once you rank with an Exact Match domain, it's easier to rank, but it's very hard to knock that person out of the top slot when they have it. Like tires.com, right? They're number one for tires, or makeup tutorial.
Because of that Exact Match.
Yeah. It's very hard to knock them out of that saddle once they achieve the position.
Nice. And one of the other resources you shared with us, which we've actually made a couple purchases on, is justdropped.com. That's a great website for finding recently
like $80
inspired
domains.
Yeah, everything's like
bucks,
60 to 80 bucks.
Yeah.
Maybe at the most like 200, but they have really good domain names all the time.
I'm using a news source now called undeveloped.com, which is pretty cool. It's only stuff for sale.
Okay.
But it goes all the way from 20 bucks, and they're aggregating all of the different domain sellers into one searchable list.
So they're like the kayak.com.
They are. They're kind of like they're trying to be, and they're doing a pretty doggone good job. And some are make offer, and you got to negotiate, and depending on who owns them, there's there's one guy named Frank Schilling that owns like 70% of the really great domains in the world. There's an article about him. It's called "The Man Who Owns the Internet." He started buying domain names like as soon as they were available to buy, and he bought like hundreds of thousands of them.
Wow.
And he owns.
What's his name? Frank Schilling?
Yeah, his name's Frank Schilling. I've never met him.
I'll check.
He lives in like Nevis or somewhere. There's a guy that wrote an article about him. It's called "The Man Who Owns the Internet."
Check that out for sure.
And he's just made hundreds of millions of dollars.
Probably never had to work again.
But when he's been selling them, even though he bought them, a lot of them, as he's selling them, he's buying more. So he's still buying premium. There's a lot of places to bid on ones that are about to expire. One resource that's really cool is called namejet.com. And it'll show you everything that's about to expire, or if you just want to put a domain in it, I'll tell you one. So I wanted a particular domain for a product we've just developed called Potty Bombs. So Potty Bombs are freaking awesome. They're bath bombs, but they're only this big. They have the same stuff in them that's in Poo-Pourri.
Okay.
So instead of spraying it, you just drop a bomb.
Splash it in.
Just drop a bomb. So
you drop a bomb and then drop a bomb.
Yeah. But I wanted to buy a potty bomb and pottybombs.com. So I contact this guy and he's like, yeah, I want $100,000 a piece for him. And I'm like,
please.
You're freaking high. And it just wasn't even worth a conversation. I went and put them both into NameJet. This didn't always work out. About 9 months later, he didn't re-register them. And I bought them for $69 a piece.
So he just forgot to register them, and you got an email or an alert or something?
No, it goes ahead and pays for them and grabs them.
Awesome.
And the way the service works is a little weird. Like, if you're the only person that put that on hold, then you just get the domain. But if, like, you and I both put it on hold at different times and it comes available, they'll grab it, and then there'll be a private auction just between you and I.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whoever's grabbed it and tapped it for...
Right. Yeah, it's called reserving it. So you reserve that domain. So that's... I use them a lot.
Okay.
And they have just a lot of good auctions on there, stuff that pops up that you would never think of. I bought I won't say the name of it right now because they're fighting over it, but there's a country club name that I bought that there's 6 of them in the country with this name. So I bought xxcountryclub.com. So I bought it for $210 or something. And I sent out a FedEx to all the different country clubs that none of them have their domain. They got a .net or a hyphenated. And I said, look, I have this. I'm going to sell it at auction. And here's the thing. And I bought it on NameJet, promoted it, and then listed it back on NameJet. And now it's at auction.
That's great.
So I think I'll probably get, right now the bid on it's about $3,400.
That's wild.
So it's just, I bought it on that platform, sell it on that platform, but just alerted more people that it was available, people that would want it, that it was available. You know?
So it really is just like real estate.
It really is.
I mean, it's literally...
it's like saying, hey, your neighbor's going to sell.
Yeah.
And you're sending a letter to the... don't you guys do that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like that. You know, who would want that? You know? And if you get them bidding against each other, you can ask a price, but it's way better to just let them bid.
Oh,
because they'll just go bananas.
Especially if they don't know.
Yeah, right. And nobody knows what it's worth. It's worth. Some guy told me one time is how a painting becomes worth $1 million.
How's that?
2 billionaires want it.
Yeah.
That's the secret.
Right.
Seriously, that's it.
So market to the billionaires. Very cool. Great advice on domains. So I think that's definitely something that people can do a lot with. What about like your first big internet win? What was it when you were like, wow, this is like really a thing for me?
Oh gosh. Crashstore.com, as cool as it sounds, we did $14 million in the first year we were open. We didn't make a single penny.
Oh,
wow. But I bought a bunch of domains. That's when I started domaining. I bought rubberstamps.com. I bought dryraceboard.com. A bunch of other stuff. So I developed almost everything I bought back then.
Okay.
So I developed Rubber Stamps. I developed Dry Erase Board. Dry Erase Board was a pretty big success. I probably made $100,000 a month from dryraceboard.com for a lot of years.
And that's just selling dry erase boards?
Just selling dry erase boards. I had a distributor and we sold them and the distributor fulfilled on them and we made the profit. We bought awesome. Google ads, and it was pretty simple. We had a pretty simple business. It was easier back then.
Yeah.
It's not that easy now, right? I had a standard though, when I was selling physical goods. It was like, because these were big porcelain dry erase boards. I still think it works, by the way. If you can come up with something to sell rather, that a good example was stanchions. I used to sell stanchions, those retractable belt things that, crowd control. Something people need, something that costs over $100, something they would have a hard time finding in their local market, and something they don't really sell on Amazon. That last one used to not be the case.
Yeah.
Now that's really.
Now that's probably the biggest one.
They're 53% of the market. 53% of all e-com's Amazon.
Wow.
I saw yesterday was Prime Day. I heard this morning they shipped 175 million items yesterday. In a
really
day.
mind-boggling.
In a day.
Yeah.
So they're just a behemoth. But there's still a lot of stuff. There's still a lot of opportunity out there. Like those stanchions were really a good example. I imported them from China. They were about $15 a piece. I sold them for $79, I think. Nobody buys a stanchion. Mm-hmm. So the average ticket was about $1,500, and it was great. They're just little sweet spot products, consumer packaged goods. My sister sells snake repellent, believe it or not, online. I built a website for her 12 years ago, and she makes 6 figures a year selling snake repellent online. Little weird niches of things that you would never think about, so all kinds of stuff you can do.
There's a market for everything, it sounds like.
Yeah.
On the good old internet.
And I sold, my first information product was on how to start a hot dog cart.
Okay.
That kind of made me famous in the business because I sold $1 million worth of courses on how to start a hot dog cart. And that's how Ryan heard about me in the beginning. It's pretty funny.
Well, that was my next question is actually, how did you guys get involved with doing the digital marketer thing?
We met at a mastermind, actually. Masterminds are a good thing if you hadn't heard them.
Yeah.
Yannick Silver, a mutual friend of ours, had a mastermind, and we met at a mastermind, became really good friends, and my life would have taken a different trajectory had I not had that friendship, I think.
Yeah. So how did it go from being in the mastermind together to forming the business relationship and doing
Remember I told you I almost went to jail?
Yeah.
That's how it happened.
Okay.
So Ryan knew that, generally speaking, I was a good guy. We made some mistakes. I should have done some things that we did, but we weren't, I don't think, any bigger offender than anyone else. Just happened to be our day. They punched our ticket, right? And so I just got wiped out. I was killing it. We were making so much money, and it just all went one day. Be careful in regulatory markets.
So what was that? That was like a supplements thing? And you got popped for
by the state
disclosure or
for
something?
weighs and measures. How much a package weighs. How much the content inside weighs. That jacked up.
That's what it was, huh?
That's what started the whole
And it was
thing.
just inconsistent? So
Inconsistencies.
Wow.
And it was just a pain in the ass. But anyway, and then it got into some claims issues, some other stuff. Anyhow, but Ryan called me up and said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I don't know. My phone's not ringing. I'm broke." And he said, "Well, if you want to come down and run my business with me, I'd love to have you as a partner." And I said, my ass has already left.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And Ryan was a real small, we were both pretty small players back then in retrospect. And I think we did $9 million in our first 7 months.
Through digitalmarketer.com.
It wasn't digitalmarketer.com then.
Okay.
It was Touchtone Publishing, I think was what we called it.
Oh, that's a much better name.
Yeah, it rolls right off the tongue. Yeah. But we did a product for, we did a Google ad buying product, and I think we did $2 or $3 million.
Oh, wow.
Which basically almost all went to pay my legal bills.
Okay.
So I still was broke.
Right.
I was broke for 2 more years. When I finally came to even, We had a huge Perry's Broke party. And I celebrated just being broke.
I love that.
Because I was sub-broke for... I paid all my bills, so I didn't file bankruptcy. And everybody's like, why don't you just bank... Because it'll mess my relationship. I don't want to do that. Those people didn't do anything wrong. And I'm pretty proud. That's one thing in my life. I'm not proud of a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes, done a lot of things I'm not proud of. But I was really proud I didn't do that. I paid all my bills.
It's very impressive, man.
Yeah. Even
a lot of people wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Because they took all my money and left me about $3 million in debt. So...
Crazy.
So we paid off all that, and then,
And then who came up with the idea to transfer it to digitalmarketer.com?
If it was a good idea, it was obviously mine.
Clearly,
yeah. No, that was Ryan's. Ryan came up with the digital marketer brand, and I wanted to buy internetmarketer.com, and it turns out he was right, and I was wrong. He kind of had a vision on the future of what the industry was going to look like,
right?
Which is really important, especially in domain buying. I just bought, not long, I bought about a year ago, I bought mediastrategist.com. 3 or 4 years ago, I bought it. And now, like the social media people and the PR people and all, that's all converging under one title now. And it's Media Strategist, and I own it. So if I ever get back into that business again, or if there's a partner out there that wants to hook up, let me know.
Holler at him.
Yeah. Holla. But yeah, that's cool. That was cool. I think if you can kind of get a glimmer of what people are calling themselves, because titles change. Like, do you remember? I read a thing the other day because I went to write an ad because I'm an old dude in my office. I got a lot of young guys and the young girls that work with me and stuff, and I'm writing an ad the other day, and I said, we need to run an ad for a webmaster, and they looked at me like I had three heads. And they said, a what?
What's a webmaster?
Yeah. You don't call it. And I had to Google, what do you call a webmaster now? Because it was a web. So if you own webmaster.com, it used to be a big site, right? It's dead as fried chickens. Yeah, right? So if you can kind of figure out where the vernacular of your audience is going. I love stuff like not just exact match. If I can't get exact match, I love things that are the common vernacular, right? So like I own amazingwomen.com, right? And if you talk to somebody, if you talk to a woman, the way some accomplished women that are accomplished always get described as amazing women. Guys that are accomplished always get described as a good man. Isn't that funny? They're amazing. We're just good. People, if you can pick up on that vernacular, how people, what do they say?
The verbiage being used.
Yeah, I own you'resopretty.com. We have a fashion blog there. And weird stuff you'd never think of. Like I wanted to buy fashiontrends.com. because I thought that'd be cool to own it. That would be the one to own, right? And they wanted $250,000 for it. And fortunately, it was expensive, so I didn't buy it. And I started digging around, and I found that cuteoutfits.com. I was going to do a fashion blog there. Cuteoutfits.com, because the vocabulary's changed.
More people are Googling cute outfits.
Wow. 6 times more traffic, and I bought it for $7,000. Right? You never know.
So you guys had the foresight to call it Digital Marketer.
No, you guys didn't. He did.
He did. Great job, Ryan.
I'll give him full credit on that.
Yeah.
One.
Shout out to Ryan Dice on that.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. I want to shift gears a little bit. One thing I think you're most well known for is copywriting and storytelling.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
Copywriting before, more recently, storytelling,
Yeah, and I think storytelling is a huge part of sales now, especially with people wanting more authenticity and the more realness in what they're consuming. And one thing that you said was, those who tell the best stories rule the world.
They do.
So...
Proven fact. Not my idea.
Okay.
Proven fact.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Just to prove that point, first of all, they did a survey a year ago, and they asked 10,000 people, if one of these two people could rule the world, who would you pick? And one was Queen Elizabeth, and the other was J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling won 63% to 37%. She tells a better story, right? So I was reading not long ago this book, Sapiens, and it really opened my mind to storytelling even more. That for 160,000 years, since the beginning of time, they can imagine men were on Earth, we traveled in packs of 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. We're now the only animal on Earth that converges by the millions in certain geographic areas. Mm-hmm. We're the only one, if you think about it. There's nothing else that works that way.
Right.
We didn't either for 160,000 years. So what changed? Hieroglyphics. So when they started telling stories by drawing on cave walls, people started congregating to hear the stories and read the stories. Then ink and other printing presses, the Bible, right? And then you got the Roman Empire, right? You got hundreds of thousands of people living in modern cities because they could effectively communicate, they could share, and it was all stories. It wasn't about the communication of facts. All information back then was conveyed in stories, and it basically still is. There wouldn't be civilization without stories. That's kind of a biggie.
Yeah.
Right? The coolest thing I've seen lately, there's a website called Significant Objects. And this blew my mind. But there's a journalist bought 200 items on eBay for an average price of $1.25 each. He sent each item to a journalist friend of his and asked him to write a totally fictional story about this item. And then they relisted them on eBay with the fictional story, right? The average item sold for $41. 8,000% markup with the story. There are so many things like that, though, if you really think about it. You know, the story of, like, the most popular, these movies about singers and stuff, the singers love movies about them because that lets people have more insight in them. Nobody knows, like, the gossip business. It's like, how did they find out that Jennifer Lopez likes bananas? Well, because she asked, her publicist begged them to do a freaking interview because they realized a long time ago that the more you know about your celebrities and their origin story and where they came from, especially their challenges, their difficulties, right? The more you feel connected to that person and the more you'll go to their movies or buy their products or what have you. And if you watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians, all they do is talk about all the problems they have in their lives. You know they got to manufacture that shit. They're living in Malibu with sitting on a pile of money
millions
up
and
their
millions
ass,
and millions
right?
of
They got to
dollars,
make that up. They got to create drama. That's the biggest thing about storytelling to remember. The only thing interesting is trouble.
Trouble.
That's it. Nobody wants to hear a story, a good story. Nobody cares. You know, and if you think about it, you automatically do it because you know people just, like, if you go on a vacation, you're gone 2 weeks and you're sailing through the Greek Isles, right? You don't come back and tell people, you might say, oh, it's beautiful, it's really nice. But you talk the rest of the meal about losing your luggage somewhere, being pickpocketed, almost missing the bus.
Yeah.
You'll talk for an hour about all the things that went wrong on the trip. And you do that because you know that's all people really want to hear about.
It's way more interesting.
It's way more interesting. And I think people on their social media can learn a lot from that. I see so many people on social that are, and look at me, the fish lip picture that, you know, that the girls are turning around with their ass up in there, which I don't mind those. But all that stuff of being, oh, here I am at a fancy restaurant, or here I am, oh, let me tour you through my fancy hotel room. Some asshole does that all the time. Just kidding. I love you. That was fun.
That was good.
But seriously, break your toe and put a picture of that on Facebook. See what gets more engagement.
Right.
Everybody engages when there's pain involved, when there's tragedy, right? That Significant Objects was very interesting because of the stories that worked, that made the most money. It's pretty funny to read the ones that didn't work, and you kind of see kind of why. They were usually happy stories.
Right.
They were fun stories. They didn't work. The ones that worked had some things in it: sex, tragedy, death, nostalgia, and humor. And those are the elements of a good story.
And so how do you take that trouble, that drama, that interesting, engaging piece and put it into like a sales message?
There's a formula for it. There really is. And I'm going to pee and then I'll come back and tell you about it. Is that okay?
Let's do it, yeah.
All right.
And a quick intermission.
I got to pee.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
All right. My bladder thanks you.
Really great advice on storytelling and drama and what gets good engagement.
Sure.
How would you say that someone can take that and put that into their sales materials?
I'll give you the long version, and then because the long version is usually the better version, right?
Yep.
And abbreviating it is hard because there's an old saying. It's like, I apologize for the length of this letter. I didn't have very long to write it. So I used to write everything with it's called a 21-step formula, sales letter formula. And it's online, and I think they publish it at Early to Rise or something. A lot of people have. If you see Perry Belcher's 21-step sales letter formula, it's pretty good.
So check that out. The 21-step sales letter formula.
And it's not I don't even think it's on one of my sites. I did that for years. It's the way I wrote copy, and it's still a good system of writing copy. Now I kind of scrapped it, and I think the way consumers buy has really changed. There's a lot more information. People know more about your product. They've done more research. It's just tot. You can look at all the reviews, and they know everything before they ever think about buying your thing. So how do you sell in that environment? Well, you can be the cheapest guy. You can be the guy with the most features of your widget, which sometimes you can do and sometimes you can't. It's very difficult to do those two things and make a profit. So how do you do it? You emotionalize the sale. You do that with a story, right? Okay. So now my method is make a promise what my product's going to do. Okay. Tell a story, ask for an offer or an order. It's actually a much simpler thing. And
make a promise, tell a story, call to action.
Call to action. Simple Simon, right? If you take somebody's home listing and you scrap and this beautiful colonial home comes with 3 full bathrooms and a roaring fire. I'll bet if you tell a story there, you'll sell that home 3 times faster if the story's good, right? So tell them it's a great house for sale, the great price. Tell a story, ask for the contact or whatever.
So what would a story like that look like? I'm just curious.
Well, I'll tell you what a story looks like. Okay. How about that?
Okay.
So there's a common story arc, they call it, and it comes with a few parts. So a story requires 3 things, right? You got to have a scene, you got to have characters, and you have to have a story, a storyline, right? So I'll start with scene. This is the one most people really miss. For a story to be effective and engage people, they have to be pulled into the place the story happened, right? Okay. That's super important, and most people miss it. If you read Stephen King, he's awesome at this. He'll write 3 pages describing where the character is and 1 line of dialogue.
Setting the scene with words.
Setting a scene is huge.
The smells, the sights, the sounds.
It really is huge because you're bringing people into the scene. And why does it work? I don't know, but it does, and you have to have it. The things that set a scene are typically, there's a lot, but things I can remember off the top of my head I don't have any notes here at all, by the way. Time, place, hot, cold, colors, textures, smells, the senses, basically.
Right.
You want to describe the 5 senses as much as you can to them about the place.
To get people to feel like they're there.
Right.
Experiencing
and it. If you want to really learn how to do it well, you'll listen to country music.
Okay.
But really not just country, any kind of ballad. So a ballad, there are a lot of ballads. There are rock ballads, there's, but country is always the best. But I like both kinds of music, country and Western. You heard me say that a lot. But a country song or any ballad is a 3-act play. It's a story.
Okay.
So Act 1 describes a scene, introduces a character. Act 2 describes the trouble. The bridge heightens the drama. To 3
is the triumph.
Is the triumph or the tragedy.
Right.
It depends.
Yep.
So the difference between a drama and a tragedy is whether the hero wins in the end or loses. And if the hero wins in the end, that's a hero story. If they lose in the end or die, that's a tragedy. Shakespeare wrote a lot of tragedy. Everybody died in the end, right? So what happens first? The scene, right? So those things get set with color, textures, whatever. If you think about it in songs, like who's somebody you like that I might know since I'm old?
If we're talking about ballads, I'd go with Motley Crue, Home Sweet Home.
All right. Don't know that one.
All right, you pick one.
I'm
a rock and roll guy.
Well,
so
country,
anything,
rock and roll. Okay, so
I
I met a Ginso ballroom queen in Memphis. Right? You had a place.
Yep.
You got a description of a character right up front. Why does that matter?
Right.
Because you got to have a scene.
Yep.
Right? On a warm summer's evening, on a train bound for nowhere, I met up with a gambler. So then the second part, you got to develop your characters.
Okay.
So there are 4 key characters to every story. The hero, the villain, the sidekick, and the love interest.
Hero, villain, sidekick, love interest.
Yeah, and they're in almost every story you'll ever hear. Now, there can be more characters than that.
Right.
But those characters are almost universally mandatory.
Okay.
So you're going to develop these 4 characters. So you want to write down on like a piece of paper some background stuff. You can make it up, but you need to have they need to have a history. I've seen some writers some novelists that will have notebooks like this thick on the backstories of characters in their books and stuff, most of which they'll never put in the book. But they do that so they know the character.
They just map it out.
Yeah, and that way they'll know that, oh, well, that character would never do this, or that character would always do this in this situation. Right. So it helps them to write, and it helps the character has to stay consistent. People don't do things out of character. Now today, really good stories, if you're a master storyteller, you've got amazingly complex characters with plots and subplots. You got characters like Dexter, who's a serial killer
and a doctor
that you don't want him to get caught.
Right.
Or Tony Soprano, who's a murderous
gangster,
but you just want to give him a big hug because he's a nice guy and he loves his family, whatever. So these complex characters are emerging more and more and more in film and television. And the more complex the character, we're becoming more sophisticated watchers.
Yeah.
And we know from inside our own bodies and our own minds, this is going to come to surprise. I'm not completely good.
Shocking.
Yeah. And neither are you. And neither is anybody else, right? We're all good. We're all bad. We're all sweet. We're all bitter. We all have a mixture of these different personality traits. Except maybe Ryan. He's pretty much good all the time. So you got to figure out what's good about your character, what's bad about your character, what do they show on the outside, and what do they actually feel on the inside. That's called a character diamond.
Okay.
Right? And you can Google that and find maps of a character diamond. They're really cool.
So we've set the scene, we've set the characters.
Now you tell a story. The story follows something called a story arc. I call it a story cliff. All stories start with establishing norms. Like, it was a normal day, we were just going along, and you establish what a normal day looks like within a minute, 2 minutes into the story, like a film or whatever. Then there's something called an inciting incident. That means something happens that just turns the hero's world upside down.
Okay.
Right? It just totally jars their world.
Right.
Because we can relate to that because we've had things like that happen in our
died,
lives.
went through bankruptcy,
Right.
lost the house,
whatever
got
the case
sick,
is,
whatever.
right?
Yeah.
Car wreck or train wreck or whatever, plane crash. And then they have to make what's called an acceptance of the call. So that the hero goes, no, I'm not going to let that stand. I'm going to go correct this. So they go on a mission, right? Well, they're immediately met with challenges. And that tenseness between the hero forcing this way and the challenges going this way is called drama.
That sparks the drama.
That's drama. Just when you think that he's making a little ground, he gets smacked back down, right? And then over time, somewhere in there, he's probably going to run across somebody that he falls in love with, or maybe he's going to save somebody he was already in love with, or whatever. There's a love interest talked about, and then there's a sidekick.
Then there's sidekick shows up.
The sidekick shows up. Somebody's going to help him, and there's this challenge. Well, not the sidekick yet. We got ahead of ourselves. The villain. So the villain gets introduced, right? So now he knows what he's up against, and there may be more than one villain, right? But you know, there's all these forces. The more forces going against this hero, the more interesting the story. And then there's a sidekick that comes along. It's like, wow, he might be able to really help him save the day. And they have a brief victory. And you're like, oh man, maybe they're going to make it. And we fall for this over and over and over and over and over. It's called Hollywood, right? After the brief victory, something catastrophic happens. And there's no way the hero can win. But somehow
he will overcome.
There's a solution and he wins. And he gets the girl. He makes a new friend. And the lesson is learned. Everything's better than it was before. And you show the new normal. And that's the end of the story. In our case, we do all that stuff and we make an offer.
So
there's a lesson taught.
How would that look for someone in the real estate space? How would that relate to?
You could tell the story, the history of the home. Like if you're selling a historic home, for sure would be great. If not, you can tell a story that starts with imagine. Imagine
waking up on your balcony, feeling the ocean breeze.
Imagine that it's 5 p.m. Christmas night, and everybody's on their way over, and nobody's seen the house yet. The fire's crackling, the scented candles are burning, the smells from
roast beef's in the oven.
The smells from the kitchen are roast beef. There's roast beef on Christmas. Man. What's wrong with you? Kind of weirdo. It's a toiki. You don't have to be so dramatic, right? But just talk about what that day looks like. I'll tell you, the way I won my wife, I'm way better looking at her. But one of the things I asked her was, what's a perfect Saturday look like to you? And we sat at a cafe a couple days after we met, and we described what a perfect Saturday would be. And I had her.
And you guys were in alignment.
I had her. I was in like a dirty shirt. Yeah. You can use this stuff for anything, good or evil, as it turns out. But yeah, as soon as the story's over, and what you want to do, as soon as the drama is released, you got to make your offer almost immediately because all the interest is gone. So I'll give you a couple of examples to prove my point. So they say that the best example of a great dramatic story, the hero's journey, is Die Hard. Almost everybody's seen that movie, right? So here's this guy. He's going home for Christmas. He's got a big teddy bear. Everything's cool. He's going for the multiple time to try to get his wife back. You can tell. So the love interest is baked into the story, right? And then what happens? That Nakatomi Tower blows up, right? And he's in the basement. First thing he's got to get out of the garage, which was a challenge, right? So he takes the mission. He's going to go save everybody because he's a good guy. But he's a flawed character. He's a good guy. He's a workaholic. He drinks too much. He cusses too much. He's a smart ass, right? He has all kinds of flaws.
But
he's a good guy in his heart, right? So he takes off. So he accepts the call. So he encounters the villain right away, Hans Gruber, right? They show Hans Gruber as the evil villain, right? So now you know who the villain is, and he's after McCain, and McCain's trying to get him, and then they start cutting back more to the story about his wife, right? So they're working the love interest in the right position, and there's a timeline for all this. There's an arc. I'll give it to you. You've got it, probably. You got my story arc, probably. And then there's a sidekick. So who's the sidekick?
Which Die Hard?
With the first one. The sidekick's the fat cop in the car eating the Twinkies, right? Yep. He's the sidekick. Then he's telling them where they're at and telling them the layout of the building. You think he's going to win, and everything's like, man, they're finally going to get it. And then all of a sudden, they got him surrounded. And there's no way out. There's no way he's going to make it. The guy's got him dead to rights. He's dead as fried chicken. And John McCain picks up the nail gun and shoots the guy in the head with a nail gun in the construction area, right? And it says nailed him, right?
Nailed him.
It's so awful. But as soon as that guy's dead, and you know there's no more bad guys, and Hans Gruber falls down and he's dead, you're ready to put your coat on and get out of the theater. So you got to hurry up while people are still in that suspension of belief, and make them the offer, of whatever it is that story associates to you. If you look at a movie like Shrek, couldn't be more different than Die Hard, right?
Totally, yeah.
It's not. It's an identical story. Shrek's wallowing around in his mud puddle. He's living life. He's digging it as an ogre in the woods. Then this princess gets dumped on his doorstep, and it's like, what am I going to do now? I've got to get back to the castle. So he decides to take the mission to get her back to the castle. So they take off, and then you introduce Lord Farquaad, the mean guy So he's the villain, and then you get a sidekick pops in, this donkey,
right?
And then they start winning after donkey. Things are getting a little better, and he starts to find out he's really in love with the princess, and it all gets wet. And then all of a sudden, the whole army comes. An impossible situation takes her away, and he's screwed forever. Then and only then he realizes she's the love of his life, and he has to get her back no matter what. Yeah. So the timeline is exactly at the end. He gets the girl, the bad guy loses, the good guy wins. He makes a new friend, and everything goes back to a new normal that's a little bit better than it was before. Exact same story. Tommy Boy. Everybody loves Tommy Boy. Yeah. And you get the thing. Yeah. The line is the same no matter what the movie or the story is. And you can shrink that line into 5 minutes, the story into 5 minutes, or you can stretch it out to 90 minutes like they do in the films, or you can stretch it down to 300 pages like they do in a novel. But the story is a story is a story. It never changes.
So as you've taken them through that formula, what's the call to action?
It depends. It really is a lesson. So you got to, in every good story, at the end, there's a lesson learned. So you just have to weave that lesson into whatever it is you're selling. So if you know what you're selling in the beginning, you can retrofit the story to fit the
narrative or whatever.
Narrative, whatever you want to happen, right? I wrote a story for our survival business. And it was all about a lady who woke up one morning, her house was flooded, and she was freaked out. She was all by herself. She had a little dog with her, and all kinds of trouble happened. And she's trying to get out of her house. They're trying to send her a boat, a plane. They can't get her out. And finally, out of nowhere, her neighbor comes up on a jet ski, rescues her. He's the sidekick, right? Her love interest was the dog. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So you take a lot of liberties with these.
Right.
He shows up.
It can be unconventional.
Yeah, he shows up, saves her, and as they're 200 feet away on the jet ski from the house explodes into flames from a gas explosion. Totally true story. So how did I get it? I saw it on Ellen. So the guy was on Ellen as a hero story, and I found it on YouTube. I just looked up hero story on YouTube, and I found this one, and I'm like, crap, that's great. And I wrote it. So at the end, the guy who had saved her was very prepared. So I said, in the end, Gary saved Joanne because Gary was prepared. He had a plan, he had tools, he knew what to do in case of emergency. What's your plan? as a member of the Family Protection Association, we give you plans, tools, yada, 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 yada. So I immediately pivoted into my pitch, right?
That's good.
So that's the...
So you took the emotion from the story,
right,
and then rolled that into...
And it doesn't even have to be totally related. It's just pretty crazy. This is, when I teach this now, I call it the soap opera method for selling. So back in the 50s, everybody here has heard of soap operas, but most people have no idea why they're called soap operas. And it's because back in the 40s and 50s, this company called Procter & Gamble realized that every time they advertised their dishwashing soap or their things like that to primarily women, at the time most women were in the home, they weren't in the workforce, that they were, when they were advertising these stay-at-home moms, if they advertised during a talk show or something, they didn't sell a lot. If they advertised during the news, they sold almost none at all. But if they advertised during a dramatic movie, a love story particularly, they sold more soap. So they actually went to NBC and said, you don't have much playing during the day, so we want to buy all day, every day on NBC, ABC, and CBS, and we're going to create our own programming. And we'll buy all the sponsor spots, which was a great deal for the networks because they had nothing going on.
Yeah.
And they did. And they created The Guiding Light and General Hospital and all those shows. And Procter & Gamble owned and produced all those shows and then bought all the spots for them.
With the intention of selling more soap.
Of course.
Wow.
And they became the largest consumer products goods company in the world by a lot. They're like 40 times bigger than their next competitor. And it was all based on that.
That's really amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
I had no idea.
Yeah. So that's the power of story.
What about the other thing I think you're really good at, and I think this is key for most people in business, is writing good headlines and good hooks.
Yeah, guy, that's almost impossible to teach. I think some people get that and some people don't. It's kind of the best that I can teach it is I call peeling the onion, right?
Okay.
So most people will write a headline that's very direct, lose 30 pounds in 30 days or some, and that's how you get in trouble, right? Because you go to the easy. It's real easy to make a claim. It's real easy to, being more emotional is, emotionalizing a headline is much more difficult. But all you really have to do it well is to do what I call peel the onion. We'll stick to weight for a minute. So let's say somebody they're looking for weight loss or whatever. Why? Well, I want to lose some weight. Why? Well, I want to be skinnier. Why? And you'll find that maybe it's because they love nice clothes and they can't buy nice clothes in their size. Maybe it's because they love their grandchildren, but they can't get down on the floor and play with them and get back up.
So each why is one layer of the onion.
Every why is one layer of the onion.
Okay.
So the more times you can ask why and get an honest answer, when you get down to the core of things, there's a thing called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And that hierarchy of what we need in life is at the bottom of it, basic, is food, water, and shelter, safety. The next thing is love. We need, really it's sex is the way the thing is sex, but we call it love because it's better than saying, hey, I want to hit it. I love you sounds better than I sure would like to have that Mugambo, you know what I'm saying? So, but anyway, and then it goes up to like other layers of self-improvement and the things that we need. So if it gets right down to most things you sell, they're primal needs. So there are three brains in your head. Most people don't know that. So you got three brain. You got a mammalian brain, you got a prefrontal cortex, and you got a reptilian brain. So there are three brains in your skull right now. There's a little bitty one back here. It's about the size of a walnut. It makes almost every decision we make, and that's called the reptilian brain. And the reptilian brain doesn't know how to say no. It only sees what it wants, and it wants it. And then the mammalian brain is like a hard drive. So this brain's like a processor, and this brain's like a hard drive. So it keeps a record of all of our experiences in life. Some even experiences we didn't have, but that our ancestors had, that we're born with, that are baked in, where we have natural fears of things. And then this front brain, the prefrontal cortex, is only really humans have that, and a very, very small dysfunctional version in primates. And that brain says no. That's all it does. That's its whole job.
That's your defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Okay.
That references this. It says, ooh, last time we did that was bad. Right?
Okay.
So, ooh, last time we did that was good. Maybe I'll let that through. So putting this prefrontal cortex to sleep is the secret to persuasion. That's what hypnosis is.
Okay.
I
feel like we're going deep right now. I like this.
When you're hypnotizing someone, you're turning off this prefrontal cortex so you can suggest or change the programming in this hard drive so that you'll process the information differently back here. But the best way to explain it that I know, and I've done this a bunch of times, so I've kind of had to get better at it. If there's food on the ground and a snake is crawling along and it sees the food, it's just going to go eat it. Even if there's a 1,200-pound gorilla in front of it that stomps the snake dead. Snake has no memory and has no judgment. It only knows to eat, protect itself against the elements, and reproduce. That's what's hardwired into all of us. This brain back here wants to get laid, get fed, and have a comfy place to sleep. That's all it's looking for, right? So if a dog is walking along, sees the food, sees the gorilla, and it has what's called a fight or flight response. So this is cooked into us. We don't have to process this with our brains. It says basically, if it's smaller than us, eat it. If it's bigger than us, run from it. And if it's the same size as us, have sex with it. I'm not kidding. Mate with it.
All right.
Right? So that's kind of it. Or maybe fight with it, right? If there's something you want to fight over.
Right.
So the dog would have a fight or flight response, see the gorilla go, ah, shit, and run off, right? I'm out. Because the dog at least has memory. It'll either run away because of memory or because of natural fight or flight, or it'll run away because it's already had an encounter with a gorilla in the past. It didn't go well.
Not to mess with it.
Didn't go well.
Right.
Right? So the difference in those two kinds of animals and a human is we can see the gorilla, we can see the food. We'll have a natural fight or flight immediately, right? But we have the ability to reason. No other animal has that. So we might be able to say, that's a big gorilla over there. He looks like he'd be slow. I've been in the desert 8 days. If I don't eat by tonight, I'm going to starve to death and die. So I don't have a lot of choice here. I think I can run and grab that food, grab it, and run up this tree before the gorilla can get me. And we can judge that sort of thing. Cars are going by, we can judge when and if to take off from the curb and go, right? Based on how bad we need to be on the other side.
Right.
If we're really in a hurry, we may take a higher risk.
Yeah.
But if we're not in a hurry, we'll wait until it's safer, right? So that's our ability to do that sets us apart from every other animal. It's if a dog's walking down the street, sniffs the butt of another dog and wants to have sex with it, they just have sex, right? And I've tried that in clubs before. You get a lot of trouble.
Yeah, we don't recommend that.
You get real beat up. You get real beat up.
Yeah.
But no kidding. Right. So you think about that. I say it as a joke. I make jokes of most of this stuff just because it makes it a little more interesting to listen to. It's sort of boring otherwise. But if you're, why wouldn't we just walk into a bar, see a good-looking girl, go up, strip her down, and start having sex with her? Well, they call that rape.
Yeah.
You can't do that, right? And it doesn't matter the desire of one or the other. That might be someone else's wife. That person might not like us at all. We may go to prison for that. There's all kinds of consequences that come with it. It can be worse. We could get married, right? It can be really bad. I'm kidding. I love you, honey. Stories, right? Hypnosis and stories and alcohol and drugs. Those are the only things that turn that brain off. So when you do want to go out and say, God, I just really need to have some sex, right? What's everybody do?
You're going to go to the club, have some drinks.
Get hammered. Yeah. You're going to turn that brain off. You're going to turn all that judgment off, and you're going to allow yourself to make bad decisions. But you need a chemical aid to do it. And it might not be a bad decision, but you're going to allow yourself to make decisions without too much judgment or guilt, right? Okay. And so when you're selling somebody a fine sports car or Rolls Royce or whatever, they can tell you an amazing story. Did you know the Rolls Royce takes 7 months to build one car? The Camrys come off Toyota line every 7 minutes. But it takes 5 experienced craftsmen 7 months to build one Rolls Royce.
And they build it with their hands.
They build it with their hands, and they hand polish the solid sterling silver lady of whatever, I forget her name, the spirit of whatever, on the top, and everyone's hand polished, and the wood is taken. They tell you this beautiful romantic story of the history of the Rolls Royce, because otherwise, no other idiot would buy a $400,000 car.
Right.
But when they're telling you all that stuff, the better that story is, the more this brain is turning itself off, and you're being allowed, because you looked at it and went,
like, oh, that makes sense.
Want car, right? Yeah. This said, want car, right? So you just want it, so you would normally go do it. But people buy with an imaginary scale.
Okay.
Right? I believe every sale is made this way. There's a scale over here that says, will this improve my life? Or not improve, right?
Negatively affect.
Negatively affect. So if it's a status scale, and they say, is the status that I'm going to achieve from this purchase worth the money I'm going to have to pay to get it? Because, for instance, like, do you have a Rolls Royce?
No.
You want one?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, you want one. So I happen to know that you're very credit worthy.
Yes.
So why don't you just go buy one?
Yeah, because it's hard to get over the hump.
Well, because you subconsciously put this on a scale, and you say, this is definitely going to elevate my status, but if I can't make my mortgage payment,
right,
my status is going to be severely depleted, right? But it's real easy when that reptilian brain back there wants something bad enough, it starts spewing chemicals into our brain. Drugs. Mm-hmm. We already have drugs. We don't necessarily need.
And that's the dopamines,
that's dopamine, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and cortisol. We have these very powerful drugs in our brain. You hear about people having extra superpower strength. This brain, when adrenaline's released, they do, right? When you use cocaine, it releases dopamine into your brain. It floods it with dopamine. Cocaine doesn't produce dopamine. Cocaine doesn't have dopamine in it. It makes your brain produce dopamine. So the cocaine is not itself a drug. It releases a drug that you already have.
So it just tells your brain to release that chemical, and that's what makes you feel good or whatever.
That's right. Yeah, and it's all about the anticipation of a good thing happening. Oxytocin's a love drug. That's community. So when people feel comfortable in a community, they'll do things they wouldn't normally do. When you feel comfortable around, you're around your buddies. You'll do stuff around your best buddies, like Sam. I can't even imagine that you've done around Sam. But you'll do stuff around your best buddies that you wouldn't do around strangers because you feel comfortable. That's a drug. That's a sedative that's being released in your brain to relax you. Mm-hmm. It's like smoking pot, right? Oxytocin is most like smoking pot. Serotonin is a status drug. It's most like alcohol. So there's all these. They're like other things, right? They don't last very long. Though. So when you're telling a story, these drugs last for very short periods of time. So while these people are in this, what we call a temporary suspension of belief, you've got to inject your message. And they go, oh, that makes sense. It's like...
And you're doing that in the hook, or you're doing that in the story? You're doing it throughout the story.
Like, for instance, you wouldn't believe... You ever watch the movie Smokey and the Bandit?
Yeah.
With Burt Reynolds?
But yeah.
You know that movie, though, right? Uh-huh. So if you're too old to remember it, go watch it because it's funny as hell. But Pontiac sold, I think it was almost 1 million black Trans Ams right after that
because of that movie.
Yeah. So you went, oh my God, that's the car I want. Or you see James Bond wearing an Omega watch, and all of a sudden... One day you're walking through the mall, you're not even thinking about it. You walk through the mall and say, oh, that's a beautiful watch. I think I want that one. Mm-hmm. You don't realize your brain got set on that. That suggestion was put inside of your brain while you're in a temporary suspension of belief or hypnotized watching a James Bond movie. Right? That's why that's so powerful. I watched John Paul DeJoria, who I think is one of the greatest entrepreneurs who ever lived, that told a story about Patron tequila, because he owns Patron. And it didn't take off until Clint Eastwood drank a bottle of it in Gran Torino.
So associations, but
powerful associations when you're under the influence of story. It's
like that, under the influence of story.
As I said it, I think I'm going to write that as a book title.
That's good. That's real good, yeah.
Yeah. So,
and then how do you structure the hook, the peeling, back to the peeling of the onion, right?
Like, yeah. Well, that's the promise. That has to be at the beginning.
Okay.
So you got to, at the beginning, you said how to write a good headline. So how do you write a good headline is figure out what it is they really want, not what they're saying they want, or not even what they're looking for.
Okay. And then speak to that.
Yeah. So if someone's buying a new home, I'd say oftentimes they're trading up, right? So they're trying to increase their status, right? They want to increase their status. So tell them how it's going to increase their status. Tell them how proud they're going to be when they invite your friends will be so, your friends are going to be so impressed when they walk through the marble gateway of the blah, 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 right? Or if they're downsizing, So imagine how smart you'll appear to your friends.
Right.
You know, you'll be living in this wonderful neighborhood. They always say buy the smallest home in the best neighborhood, and you'll be the smartest person in the neighborhood with this beautiful blah, 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 blah,
You'll
blah.
have so much less stress.
Yeah.
With
You'll have so much less stress.
And
So think about why they're downsizing their home and play to that. It's not the message, the one message won't always work, right? It depends on the buyer. And it might not be able to spell it out in the ad, but you're certainly going to meet them in person if you show them the home or if you go to list the home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I were a real estate agent, I'm certainly not. I would, when I talked about, I think all these guys go in telling the client, you know, I'm the best real estate agent in town. I'm going to sell your house faster than anybody. I'm going to sell it for more money than anybody. I wouldn't talk about any of that. You know what I'd talk about? Their next home. I would start letting them imagine themselves in that next thing they're really dreaming of. Because people, I teach this in a different thing that I teach from time to time, but it's called replacement or a replacement offer and improvement offer. Improvement offers are very hard to sell. I want to teach you how to work out every day for the next year and be real fit. Right? Or I always use marriage counseling or an affair, right? Most people who have a bad marriage would rather just have an affair. They're just going to replace that spouse with another spouse. They don't really want to put the work in to go to marriage counseling and do all those things. That's improvement, and it's hard and it requires work. Most people don't want to do that. Most people just want to replace. I did an offer. A friend of mine is here right now. Used to be in the dental market, and he was having a hard time with his business because he sold dentists on how to get more patients and improve their practices. It just didn't sell. He couldn't sell it for hardly anything. He did, but it was rough. And because he was teaching them how to improve their business.
that sounds like work.
When he made them an offer on how they can own self-storage units and not have to work behind the chair all day and go have a more relaxing lifestyle, it outsold everything he sold them. Even though the previous offer was much more congruent to them, that offer sold better because it was a replacement offer, not a improvement offer. So think about that. You know, they don't care about you or what you're and they do it to some extent, but that's not what's going to get them to list their house with you. If they have an emotional bond with you, if they like you, and the way we speed that process up in relationships is by stories. You know, Ryan always said, because we used to teach together, you know, a lot. And he said, it's so weird that I have students and you have fans. And Ryan's way smarter than I'll ever be, right? But he's very much a teacher. He's very good at it. He teaches. He said, first you need to do this, that. He's great at it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'll do like I'm doing here. You know, I'll be an idiot and I'll use some stupid colloquialism, or let me tell you a story about that or whatever. Yeah. But oftentimes I can get a better bond with the audience. Even though I'm
relatable.
Even though as a product, I'm a flawed product compared to Ryan, right? He's a better product.
Yeah.
But I can oftentimes outsell him. So like when I saw Donald Trump debate Hillary Clinton, I had a good feeling that she was in trouble. She's a very smart lady, but she talked very much in facts and numbers. And he told stories and used sound clips.
So that's almost like education versus entertainment.
Right. Yeah. Frank Kern told me one time that even in the business opportunity space, it's 90% inspiration, 10% information. People need to be inspired.
So sell them on what it's going to do for them.
Stories can also inspire. That's another thing that facts can't do. I had an unfortunate event, I'd call it, although it wasn't, it turned out to be a great event. But I was teaching human behavior and persuasion at one of our meetings we had, and Robert Cialdini, who wrote Influence, came into my breakout room, sat directly in front of me, and just waited for me to teach persuasion. I was like, fuck.
You're like, great.
Yeah. And he was actually really nice. He gave me a lot of good feedback. And he said something that I had never thought of. He said, anybody can argue with facts. It's impossible to argue with a story. And that's a big deal right there.
Yeah.
You can't argue with a story. Anybody will dispute facts. You know, the average home in this neighborhood is $300,000. No, it's not. I saw one for $295. Everybody, they just don't believe you automatically. We don't trust people. But if you start telling a story about, I moved in here 5 years ago, me and my sheepdog and my husband, and you embed this fact that when we bought our house it was only $225,000, and the reason I got an appraisal with $325,000, and most of the houses around here were like that. And I was like, if embedded in a story, those facts become just part of the story. And they don't get argued with.
Yeah. That's a good distinction.
Yeah.
I love this stuff. I think you're giving some great insight into stories and how to leverage stories to help you sell. So I just want to wrap with a couple quick, easy questions. What are some of your favorite tools or softwares that you're using right now that you like couldn't live without?
Three things I really like right now because I write a lot.
Okay.
I write in something called Hemingway app.
Okay.
It's a really cool word processor. It costs $20, and it goes in and strips out whatever you write, all the bullshit out of your writing, and it makes your writing more the way Hemingway would have written whatever you write. It takes out all the junk, and you can tune it to write to a certain grade level.
Okay.
So I write at 4th grade level and below.
And this is just preset into the Hemingway app.
Yeah, you can say I want to write at 4th. You can as you're writing, it'll tell you what grade level you're writing at, and then it'll show you which words to eliminate to get your grade level down or to change. So when you're writing to your people, no matter what you're writing, even if you're talking to them, rather than saying a police officer in an official cruiser, say a cop in a car. It's always better. If you listen to, and this goes back to songs again. Storytelling songs very similar. The biggest hit songs in all of history have always been songs that had a lot of one-syllable words. Love, love me do. I love
Right.
you.
Yeah.
I'll always be true. Right?
Yeah.
They're always really simple, very short words in those songs. Rolling Stones are like that. Most are very short words. Just so I can say I didn't just talk about country music. Yeah. But yeah, I use that tool a lot. After I write in there, I take whatever I wrote and I put it in this thing called Natural Readers.
Okay.
Naturalreaders.com. Again, it's about $25, or you can use both of those things. Have an online version. It's free.
Okay.
But Natural Readers, when you're done with whatever you're writing, it'll read it back to you in a human voice.
That's cool. So
And
you can hear what it sounds
You'll
like.
be freaked out at how bad they sound. So I'll usually do 3 rounds of edits. After I think I've got it perfect, I'll put it in Natural Readers, and I just sit with another computer. I do Natural Readers on an iPad, and I'll have it read to me, and I edit on the computer while it's reading, and I'll do 3 more rounds of edits. And when you get it to where it sounds conversational, you got a good piece. Just writing an email that way will usually, between those 2 things, will increase the conversion of the email 2 to 3 times.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
That's a great tip.
Big impact for not a lot of trouble.
Hemingway app, Natural Readers. Love those.
Yeah. And I kind of storyboard in Trello. Trello
Yeah,
is a
I
good
do
little.
love Trello myself,
Yeah, Trello is
too,
great
yeah.
for storyboarding. It's good for project management, but it's really good for storyboarding.
Very cool. So Trello's the third. What about, what are you investing in now? I know you've sold a couple businesses.
Yeah, I sold 4 exits last year,
Nice.
which was
Congrats.
weird, right?
Yeah.
In 1 year, kind of good, but you in this business now, if you're going to be in a business if you're going to sell businesses, you've got to be planting and harvesting, right? I planted, and then I kind of stopped planting, waiting for a harvest, and then they all harvested at once. So now I'm kind of out of stuff to do, right?
Yeah.
Which is good. I get some bandwidth and a little relaxation. So I'm in the thing I'm the most excited right now. I just think there's a big need in the human capital business. I think that we're in the tightest hiring market we've ever been in our history, where pay is off the scale, right? There's lawsuits, and you got to buy everybody computers. You got to put them in expensive offices. People cost is really high. They did a thing. Harvard did a thing 2 years ago that said a $70,000 employee now packs up to $111,000 a year. So by the time you put them on
With all the
vacation
extra
and
stuff.
yeah. So I've got a new company called ScaleWind. It's not active right now. We're in beta, private beta, but I've had people in the Philippines for years. 130 people over there right now. We're training people in verticals like real estate.
Yep.
So I bought realestateassistant.com, and so we're doing trained, managed outsourcing. So instead of just hiring somebody on Odesk, right, that you could do, right, we're bringing somebody in our facility, Class A office space, high-speed computer, fiber, all the time uptime, and we train them to be a good real estate assistant for 30 days before they ever start, and then so you don't pay for any of the training. And we have management levels.
That's great.
Both there and here in the U.S. So if somebody gets an assistant from us, they they don't just, or will get an assistant from us. They'll have a U.S. person to contact. So they really have any kind of issues or whatever they call U.S. So they talk to an American person. The business of human capital is going to be good. And I'm kind of on a mission. I want to employ 10,000 people in the Philippines, give them a better life, pay them more than average pay.
I love it.
Treat them really well, and hopefully make a nickel in there for myself somewhere.
Yeah.
And provide, but we're doing it for real estate, we're doing it for tech, we're doing it for mortgage brokers, we're doing it for graphic design studios, we're doing graphics for sign shops. So they can outsource, they don't have to hire a graphic designer.
Oh, that's great.
Because graphic designers are really expensive and hard to get right now. And a little individual sign shop can't afford it.
Right.
But with us, for $900 a month, they got 50 hours of graphic design. So it's really.
I think that's a great idea too, because graphics is one of those things that every business needs. But to your point, like to hire a full-time graphic designer,
This is hard, right?
Doesn't make sense because most businesses don't need a full-time graphic designer.
Right. And they're going to be 40 or 50 grand. Pack them up. They're going to be 80 grand.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be paying basically 10 times what we'll charge. And you don't have to manage them.
And that's going to be all through
Scalewind.
Scalewind.com.
Yeah. Scalewind.com. There's not even a site there right now. I shouldn't say that again.
Well,
there will be. It's okay.
Coming soon.
Yeah, it's okay. It doesn't matter. I can't sell it right now anyway, so it doesn't matter. But that's what I'm excited about. And I've got a great publishing company partnership with Agora. And we're hiring, by the way. If anybody out there wants to come to work and learn the market.
If someone wants to learn more about what you're doing and contact you,
they can go just Perry at OlympusPeakMedia.com.
Perry at OlympusPeakMedia.com. Definitely check that out.
And we'll I know that my guys over there are hiring people left, right, and center right now. So if anybody wants a job.
There you go. Yeah. You need a job, talk to this man right here. Really appreciate your time, man. I thank you so much for everything you shared with us. You gave away some really good nuggets. If you like the show, give us a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you on future episodes. Leave any comments. I'm sure Perry will be able to circle back and answer those for you. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Founders Club.